All right, today's conversation is for the woman who knows she's meant for more, but she wants to build in a way that actually feels aligned with her. So I am joined by Danikah Rose. She is a psychic business strategist and light language channel who blends her energetic work with real strategy to help women actually scale to multi six, seven figure businesses. So she's got over 17 years of experience in business, sales, marketing, and she helps women align their identity, energy, and strategy so that their business can grow in a way that feels powerful and sustainable. She's also a mom of five, holy moly, and truly embodies building a business that supports her life, not the other way around. So, Danikah, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me. And for anyone that's listening and not watching, we are both literally smiling our faces off because our little pre chat was so much fun. And we wish that we recorded parts of it. So I'm just saying, it's only going to get better. This is going to be an amazing episode. And I am excited to show up and serve, especially when it comes to mums in business that are finding their way through what some people would describe as chaos and identity shifts. And there's so many massive changes that happen even in our businesses as we get to the next kid and the next partner and the next location and the next offer and even the next revenue jump. Like all of these things require us to be completely different people each time we tap in. So I'm really looking forward to some interesting questions today.
For sure. Yeah. Danica gave me a good challenge and I was like, let's go. I've been interviewing for over a decade. She said that she likes to get some deep questions. And I was like, okay, you're speaking my language. So this is a different environment. I was telling her too, I'm recording at night. And so I was telling her, like, I'm kind of bringing like a different, like softer, like I can tell I'm like talking softer, like, so I just feel like this is just going to be amazing. So I'm excited to kind of dive in here. So Danica, I want you to kind of just like walk us through like your journey. Like how did you even find out that, you wanted to mix like your energy, your business and build it in like your way? Like how did you get to that point?
This was a very directive and very masculine type of leadership energy that came at me one day when my husband said to me in 2021, when are you just going to do the thing instead of complaining that you don't have the thing yet? And it hit me and I was like, oh my God, are you for real? Like it just brought up so many things for me because in that moment, I realized that if I surrendered to that masculine leadership that was very blunt, it felt very direct, it was extremely personal. And I look at it from the perspective that he always comes to with his intentions, which is, I can see the best version of you. So let's bring that out within this relationship, within who you are to yourself and to the world, babe. Like, what are you doing with your life? And he's always pushing me. He's the best friend. He's the guide, the one that always asks me the hardest questions, which is why I'm a massive fan of my husband. I have like zero tolerance for husband bashing, by the way, guys, because they are saying things that are at times perceived as attacks on self, as personal boom moments, but they're actually tapping into their own intuition of reading our energy. They're reading into what actions we're taking day by day that are stacking into habits that are actually creating the family unit and infiltrating, whether it's positive or negative. The woman's energy is infiltrating every single area of our lives. And when they are saying these subtle things and we're taking it and we're perceiving it as a dig, or you can take it and flip it my way and say, my goodness, I'm stopping myself. I'm the only deciding factor here. I'm the one that creates and controls my reality. But to embody that, that's a completely different story than just being aware of it.
100%. My husband is the exact same way, Danica. And whenever you said that, I'm like, oh my gosh, like that is like my husband is my biggest cheerleader. I am 90% of my successes like to him because he like changes my mindset. Like he gives me a ton of my information, I feel like, about energy and history and these topics. Like he's my little wizard. Like I wouldn't be here without him. So like I completely, and I feel like he sees light in me more than I see it in myself. Do you feel like that?
Definitely. Yeah. And that's where I feel the destiny card plays a part because I used to be in another relationship with my first two children. And that was the complete opposite. That was me working through reparenting, my inner child wounds, my shadow work. That was me creating my holistic identity of, well, who actually is Danikah in the world if she decenters everyone else in her life and moves away from the programming, the things that we were told that we just believed because we were children. And then the choices that we made were all based on the programming that we were conditioned with. And then coming to that realization when I was around 23 years old, I was like, whoa, I'm fully conscious. Like that was another bigger part of my awakening. I've been psychic since I was 7 years old. So the spirituality aspect for me wasn't really disconnected. That's always been who I am. But when I really came online as the woman was after my near-death experience with my second baby. And she was born in like 2015. And that totally changed my life. I had a 2-year-old and then a near-death experience when she was born. And from that moment on, I was like, I'm not settling. This isn't me. This life I've created is based on conditions and transactions and things that I haven't consented to within domestic violence, within coercion, within my emotional abandonment from my mother, and how that pattern continued into the next relationship until I realized. And just from that awareness was like, right now it's solution, now it's action, now is the how to, where is the to-do lists. And it's the same formula that I apply to all areas of my life because that part is natural to me. Awareness, illumination, activate it, and then take the actual action.
I love that. And one thing that I kind of want to go back to is the masculine and how they talk to you in those directness. Like, and I feel like instead of when my husband would point out, like kind of like knock the shit off or like, quit talking to yourself like that or like those situations. And, I like old me used to like fight back. And now, like, I can catch myself and I'm like, "Ooh, this is data, like, he is telling the truth here." And I wish that and it's funny because I was talking to my neighbor the other day that, like, more women to women could have that type of, like, directness. Like, how do you feel about that?
I think over the course of my life, and especially in relation to my career, I started very young in management. And that's where all of this business and like this is a great segue because it all ties into, well, how did you blend the two? And I'm sure we'll get there within the conversation. And in this part of it, it's really good to highlight that I am predominantly masculine within. That's actually very normal for me to be very blunt and direct. However, with my husband, I had to actually learn how to soften. I needed to learn how to not be as blunt. And you're like, yes, same, like literally. The both of us would have gone through these initiations out of the maiden. And even I will say this is actually quite hilarious because I came to this realization in the last couple of days and I was like, wow, the husband that I've married, this man that I've chosen to spend the rest of my life with, that I'm absolutely devoted to and came to me through literally divine source. Like I have no human words for it. The way that we connected and how that all transpired was just a magical manifestation, if there ever were one. But I was still, when I met him, maiden, although I already had two children. I'd had another initiation that took me back into this place of complete innocence and the naivety of me, of how I was still reactive and defensive and insecure and traumatized because I kind of rewound the clock when I found the safety within that containment of his energy, which then led me into the surrender of, hey, you actually are a woman. Like you're all curves, you're all intuition, you're always supposed to be mostly that. So why this angst? Why this toxic masculine wanting to control everything? And of course, we know these patterns come from survival. They come from fight, freeze, fawn. These are usually trauma responses because we haven't had safety, actual connection and love that gives us enough time to process things that have happened to us throughout our childhood. And I'm not saying that even needs to happen within a romantic relationship. I'm just I do believe I've been blessed with that initiation through my romantic relationship with my husband. But we also do self-source that. And for me, it could only go so far where I was still providing for my children as a single mother. I was still hustling. I was still working my businesses. I was consulting for multi-million dollar companies. That's all very masculine and strategic. At the end of the day, I had a nanny and I had to be very particular about how I spent and structured my time. Whereas now there's a bit more freedom in that because of this lifestyle that we have co-created. I'm a different me now, but I still went through a mother initiation with my husband.
So this is a lot of new language for my audience. Initiation. I do a lot of this work behind the scenes, and I've been doing a lot of studying, and that's why I brought you on because I think that your experience is going to be just a lot of eye-opening. Walk, I guess, us through like the initiations and what those kind of mean. I would love to get some more insight on that for our audience.
Okay, so it will show up in completely different ways for different women and people in general, humans. A soul has a chosen path, a destiny that is unfolding with also free will, a conscious choice, and an ability to make decisions that alter that path somewhat. But my belief system lies where there are pre-written parts of the destiny that can be tapped into in advance, hence the psychic that comes into the play because there's multiple timelines that run simultaneously. And these create choice points. And you'll know it by the argument that you had with your mother, and you'll feel it in the text message that you got from your sister where she said that she didn't want to stay in contact with you anymore. And you'll feel it in the decision about whether to buy a new pet after one has passed away and they've been in your life for the last 12 years. These are the choice points that happen that give us an opportunity to reflect on who we're currently being, to then choose a timeline that is an alternative to what is currently in the vortex, what's currently in the space of your reality, meaning what are you looking at right now? The house that you live in, the car that you drive, the clothes that you wear, the food that you're putting into your body, the language that you're using towards your children and your loved ones, and to yourself, your mindset. There's a massive list here that I could probably continue rambling on and deepening because it's is literally everything that you touch, see, feel, taste, and hear. Everything that you consume is creating choice points for you to make conscious decisions. And until you are able to be aware of that, you won't be able to be aware of the choice points until you know, oh, hang on a second, I actually have more of a hand in this than what I am perceiving at this moment in time. And for some people right now, for me, I was like, wow, that's so basic. However, I'm still human. I need to remind myself of this almost daily. There's no perfection in spirituality or perfection in awareness or perfection in anything, really. It's not that something is wrong or right. I might forget for a week at a time and I'll be in my victim and say, oh, I'm cleaning up the house again all by myself and woe is me and wah, wah, wah. And I might do that. I could go on. However, the choice point is how long am I going to allow this to be a part of my reality before I consciously choose another timeline, another vibration, another way of being and speaking into existence and spelling it out for God, to hear my heart, to align what I'm seeing in front of me with what is actually meant for me, what my soul has been called for me to do. And this also applies to business. And most things that I say, it's like, wow, what I've learned in my life, if I apply that to my business, then wow.
Right. So a lot of, I will say, my audience are also Christian women. So how do you explain Christianity and spirituality and utilizing this as, I mean, this is basically, I feel like whenever I found this out, it was scary at first because I had like so much power, but then it got me excited. And now like I look forward to, seeing like what I can truly do. But again, I go through, like you say, like phases too, where I'm like, dumpy dump. And then my husband's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, you're right." back to, the real stuff. Yeah, wake up. I get this question a lot, and so I would love to know your perspective and how you would answer that.
I'm gonna like zoom out before I zoom in. It's something that feels like is really alive right now. I believe there is only one creator. That's the basis of all of my foundational beliefs. Like there's one God. There is God. And there are also a lot of men in particular over the centuries and over history that have been able to really confuse the collective with structured information that is part truth and part untruth, and part opinion and part fact. And because over the years there's been distortions and edits, especially if we look at the King James version of the Bible, these things were actually written alongside a lot of indoctrination through text, through lists about witchcraft, about heretics, about herbalism, about women in general that were hysterical, which was also translated later on in the 1820s as PMS symptoms. That's sort of where all of that originated from. And the reason why I'm bringing this to the forefront is because I believe that God's word is within us. I believe that God is speaking through us and channeling through every single thing that is created within this current reality. Earth, nature, my eyeballs, the babies, my placenta, like literally everything that has life and tangibility, this coffee cup, atoms that have materialized into form, energy that has been transmuted because energy only moves. Maybe it's stagnated, maybe it's more dense, maybe it is in the 3D. But there's also so many other interactions that we can have that are interdimensional and outside of the current. This is a cup of mug of ceramic and laptop connection. We're talking through Wi-Fi right now. We're connecting through energy. We're connecting through frequency. We're listening in headphones that are also transmitting and transmuting the energy. It's a transmission. I believe God is speaking through all of us and creating opportunity for awareness on a soul level about what we decide as the right and the wrong. And that's where the free will, that kind of language comes into play, because I have a choice. Am I listening to the lower frequencies and the self-doubt and the inner critic that I had to heal? Am I listening to my mother's voice and the programming that came through in my early childhood or my abusive relationship? Or am I choosing a kind of what I would say higher path? Again, it doesn't mean that it's the better path or that it's the easier one or it's the right one, because everyone has a path. In the same way, a part of my path was Christianity between the age of 0 and 11. I was also homeschooled until I was 11 through a Christian curriculum. I have read many spiritual texts over my lifetime, and I believe that they've played a huge part in me understanding how people have used these etherical and metaphysical, including healing, including manifestation, that are all coming through from Christ consciousness, from Jesus, from the stories of the actual Bible itself, that have been passed down through generations and whispered from one ear to one mouth to one ear to one mouth and been changed and manipulated to suit the agenda of a certain subset of families that, and this can go quite deep, but there is a group of people that are more than capable of manipulating entire societies. And we've seen this time and time again. And it happens with the wars, it happens with the programs, it happens with agendas, it happens with governments. They are all one of the same, like the two wings of the same bird, all of that type of thing. Because whether we agree to this or not, yes, there's contrast. Yes, there's duality. Yes, good and evil exist. Yes, you may perceive that as God versus Satan and fallen angels versus God's angels. And there can be all of this side by side comparison. And ultimately, every single thing has been created by God for the souls to evolve during a human experience that does involve contrast and free will and destiny, because we also made an agreement with God around our destiny before we came here. That's part of just my beliefs. Take what you need, leave the rest. It really comes down to also, how are you a psychic but you believe in God? I don't believe just that I believe in God. I believe that I work for God. I believe that I'm here for God as part of my mission to illuminate businesses, to get wealth in the hands of women that are also aware enough that they are changing thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of lives on a global scale to shift the collective consciousness and the frequency and the awareness for our children and their children and what's going to happen in 300 years from now. I have a responsibility to my destiny, to God. I have a devotion to God, to my life path, to my husband, to make sure that when I am cultivating something from my psychic channel, that I'm fully aware that this is a gift that's been given to me through my voice and through my awareness and through my ability to communicate things in a very efficient way for people to understand the breakdown, that I'm responsible for that. And I'm very discerning around what I allow in and what I put out. Hope that answered the question. It was a big answer, and thank you for holding space for that.
My gosh. No, you explained it like just so well. And I will tell everybody that, my Christian faith has grown alongside my spiritual journey throughout this, which has been, I went to church, but I never really read the Bible. I didn't really understand it, just to be honest with you. I knew the major parts of it, but I always wanted to, because I love history, and it has been so fun that I'm actually now 34, and I feel more confident in my relationship and my, knowledge of Jesus, and, that aspect and how it connects to my spirit, my true core beliefs and who I am. And I feel like I can digest it so much better now because I opened up and awoke and understand that everything, is energy, and that I do have the control, and that I am powerful. You know what I mean?
I do, because I think some religious programming will have, again, it's taking these words of God out of context for an agenda. So to keep women out of power, there's a lot of shame that's inbuilt and encoded into the way that some of the scripture is written. But if you just perceive it from God's frequency and you shift where you're actually reading it from, and you read into the intent of the words. And I won't be able to quote anything off the top of my head right now because I refuse to ad-lib. If I'm going to say something, it better be a fact. So perhaps I'll add something for the show notes here for women that are interested in what does she actually mean. I need a visual. I need that actually spelled out for me. Maybe I'll just supply something so that we can pop it down below, because I know this to be true for myself, that when we're reading it and you'll get that slap on the wrist and it'll be like, oh, I'm thinking this, or I have this desire, or I am reaching far beyond what my Christianity is allowing me. And it's okay to also acknowledge it. What I don't agree with when it came to religious programming for me was that it's okay as an Islamic, my husband was also raised as a Muslim, by the way, that's a whole other topic. And we've gone through a lot of initiations and interactions, and they've got set beliefs that are structured, that then feed into government, that feed into public holidays, that feed into money blueprints for families, that feed into all aspects of education and language and culture and government policies and law. And when we think about it from that perspective, we're like, yeah, but what is God actually telling me when I read this? Where am I feeling this information in my body? Where do I, as a mother, as a lover, as a human being, as a creative, as a person that is also influencing other people, actually perceive the word of God? Where am I feeling that energy within myself? And then that's where we can discern, is this just something that someone wrote, but am I taking it out of context? Have I got enough information and context that has been actually translated as well from other languages? Some of the English translations are also a little bit off, or they're using a different word that in the modern day doesn't mean the same thing that it did back then. And that's where these disconnection happens. But we don't in any way, at least I will only speak for myself when I say this, just to make that very clear, I would never judge someone else for the path that they've chosen. However, a lot of the Christian programming, especially my parents, also had that. My dad basically demonized my psychic abilities. You see dead people, you're possessed. Whereas possession and entities, is actually a thing, but it's in a different way. It doesn't mean that just because someone can read energy, can hear other people's thoughts, which is telepathy, can move physical objects, which is telekinesis, and can feel the energy of a lie. For example, when someone's lying to me, I can feel that and I can discern because my body has attuned to reading energy around me. But that doesn't make me an actual demon. It doesn't mean that. And another way that I've also learned through being a singer and a songwriter throughout my whole life is that my voice is also a gift, but not everyone can sing the same tune. That means that my body can actually communicate energy with tonality and with pitch. And I can hear the pitch and then I can communicate it. But it's the same way as a psychic gift or an intuitive gift that any person or human being has. Not everyone is going to be able to hear it and perceive it in the same way or even be able to communicate it back, but it's still happening. You can still be a singing, but it doesn't mean you're a singer. You can still be intuitive, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's your life path to then divulge that information to other people or be paid for it or even have that to have anything to do with anyone outside of your marriage or your maybe even just for yourself. But at the end of the day, especially women, we are heightened in our intuitive abilities, and it is a gift from God that we can either cultivate and lean into, or we can still be perceiving it in a way that puts us up against another soul and another life path and another human being, which is, well, I am this and you are that, which means there's a separation. But we are all one. We are all collectively in the womb of God's creation right now, being birthed every moment that we are gifted a breath to breathe.
I think one way that made this more digestible for me is, I mean, this is all science back, like what you're saying, which made it more, I don't know, arms open for me, I feel like, to like dabble in. And then once I dabbled in, I was like, holy moly, it was kind of like a bomb, I feel like. But what I will say is that I feel like I've looked at myself, you call yourself a psychic, like I call myself like a scientist. Like I call myself a scientist. So I feel like it's like, what you're saying, like, the women out there are going to hear this. And there's different versions of like how you can accept this information in. Do you believe that?
I think, yeah, because it's never for me about trying to convince someone else of a truth. Even a murderer believes that committing a crime for them in a heinous way is the truth.
Right.
And so, like, if that's their truth and
Ugh.
I am to judge them, yes, morally, that is absolutely against my code. That is so heinous and not appropriate. It's not okay. Harming children, not okay. Like, there are certain boundaries that the laws of the universe also have to protect us. And that is around karma. If you want to go down that route and you say, well, if you're doing bad deeds in this lifetime, then you're going to go to hell. If you're doing bad deeds in this lifetime, then you are going to come back again and have to relive that through your own experience and be harmed by someone else. There's all different angles that we're coming at it. But at the end of the day, if the focus can be on love and purity and living through our conscious decisions to better ourselves, to better our children, to better our family, to bring light to the universe, then where can we go wrong no matter which tool we're using, whether it's, am I a good Christian? Am I a good psychic? Am I a good scientist? Have I mastered myself with the tools that I'm equipping myself with? That's the question. Not am I also using my divine energy and time and your beautiful, precious time to consume and to judge and to project outward and to put your beliefs on other people, because we don't have time for that when we're raising children to our beliefs and our morals and our values, whatever they may be. Those children are the reason why, at least in my purpose, I don't let my motherhood define me. Absolutely not. However, it plays a part. I'm responsible for that creation.
That's why, at the age, you hear stories of, women getting catty, with other women or, like putting each other down. And I am just like, anymore, when I hear those things, I'm like, that doesn't even come through me. Like, I want all women to know what they're capable of and know that they are loved and that there's a place for them and that they birth children. Like they are just the most amazing creatures on this planet. And that's why I'm like, I don't even have time for that in my mind when that came across like in conversations recently. I'm like, I don't know. Like, don't you agree with that?
think there's also like a big part again around like religious separation, racial separation. And they're like, another one was the pretty privilege. Like a lady wrote on Threads the other day, like, did you notice that all of the successful coaches are pretty? Do you think they just got famous or popular because they're pretty? Are they getting engagement because they're pretty because I'm ugly? Like, and then a lot of people were commenting saying, actually, you're insecure. This has nothing to do with it. You're projecting your beliefs out into the world, and then you're seeing results and evidence that you're correct, which is ego. Ego is there to protect us. Ego is also there to sabotage us because our subconscious is working to prove that we are right. So then our manifestations and things that we see show up in our life are proving that whatever our belief systems are accurate, that they are right, that we're right. So whatever you're believing is true. Whatever your core beliefs are, even the subconscious ones, will start and continue and cycle and loop, and they will just keep showing up for you again and again and again until you get again into that level of awareness where you're like, whoa, pattern interrupt. Hang on a second. Did I consent to this? Do I agree with this? Is this actually me? Is that still the
Is
truth?
this aligned with my values? Like,
Is it
is this who
aligned?
I want to
Yeah.
be?
And then when you're asking those questions, how often, not just a monthly check-in, not just only when we talk with our coach, not just when we message the friend that we can trust. You've got to be your coach. You've got to be the friend you can trust. You have to be your divine connection to God. You have to be above all within everything in here to see it in the without, which is the outside, the external. And I do believe that the separation gets created when people are believing the stories of the mind as opposed to just tuning into the love and tapping into it. Because a comment that could have been made was, instead of you are insecure for thinking this, it's your fault, it could have been along the lines of, what are your beliefs around your own beauty? And can they be reframed so that you can also start seeing evidence in your social media or wherever that there are ugly people, like, and there are people that are like not attractive. They're not by society's expectations and standards, which, by the way, who made all of that up anyways? I have a big nose. I used to get picked on about that. I used to be overweight when I was a child. I got picked on about that. You know, I've had ugly haircuts. I have some crooked teeth. Like, are people going to pick on me about that? And beauty is perception. So, like, who even said that someone that has extra weight on them is ugly anyway? Like, women have facial hair. Wow, big deal. We don't all have to be looking a particular way to even be worthy of anything that we get to create or how many people get to see our social media. And if your beliefs are listening to this and you're saying, well, that's not true, of course you would say that because you're pretty. I'm like, well, again, harsh truth, look at your beliefs. Go and have a look for some evidence. There's plenty of people out there. A lady said, this woman made 500 event tickets sold out because she's white. And I commented and said, hang on a second. I know a fair few multimillionaires that only sell live event tickets and they're fucking amazing. And they're Black, Indigenous people of color. So where did you get those statistics from?
Mm-hmm.
Programming. We get a lot of statistics from programming, which would go against your scientific beliefs, because we do need to look for actual evidence and variables. And when there's comparison and we're only changing 15 variables at a time, how can we make a correct assertion as to whether that's fact or not? We wouldn't. You change one variable at a time. So if a business blueprint has 15 different variables, there's no way. And then a business blueprint is literally on the basis of the person that created the business. So if they're 55 years old and they have no life experience and they've never been married and they've never had children, then how do they coach mums if there's certain criteria that hasn't been met yet on their life path? And I could go on. There's so many different, that was just one random example about why there would be so many different variables. And if you're only changing one thing at a time, there's literally no comparison to anything on this planet at all with anything ever at all.
I mean, that's why I feel like I don't know, maybe it's just like my algorithm, but everything is about like simplify. Like that is truly what works. And I feel like I'm a living proof of that. Like once I pulled back, and started, pulling back on, minimalism, even pulling back on, less toxins, even pulling back on, less scheduled events, less meetings. Like it truly is that.
I love that for you as well, because, and the best part that you've brought up there is that your energy and your intentions and your interactions and how long your eyes are actually on the screen on a post, clicking in and reading the comments, programs your algorithm, which programs your consumption, which programs your mindset, which And,
Yeah,
like
you gotta do a detox.
we're creating it. Like you're literally creating your own algorithm, and life is
Mhm.
exactly the same as the meta algorithm that is flying at your face every chance because your thoughts and your energy, like the time that you invest. And I don't even say spend. I never say spend anymore. Like very, very rarely. And if I catch myself, I change it to invest. I'm like, what am I spending my time on? What am I wasting my time? No, no, no. You're investing. And if you can, like, even if you take, that's the only thing you take away from this entire podcast, change the word spend and waste to invest. And then you'll be able to make more conscious choices. Literally. Like, what am I investing my time on? And you go, is that a smart investment? And sometimes it's really not.
That is gold. Like, that is gold. Like, honestly, I was gonna add my next question because I know that I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours because, like, you really do like, there a lot of this stuff, like, I'm touching the surface with, and then you do explain it very, very just digestible, like, very, like, mom, like, layman's terms, like, you do have the gift, and so I appreciate that so, so much, but I was going to ask you, like, what is one I mean, we just fully loaded on, I feel like, my audience, like, this is a lot of new angles. Is what is one actionable item that you could give my audience today to implement this? Because, like we've said, like simplifying one thing at a time. And I think you just said it right there is asking yourself, is this an investment on my life in every single decision? Like kind of giving yourself a life audit.
Yeah. And I do also really want to encourage anyone to like not step into the stories around overwhelm because capacity is also a choice.
Mm,
She's been an entrepreneur for 12 years with kids. She's been in high level multi-million dollar business blueprints since she was like 19 years old. She's done this. She has 5 kids. Oh my God. Again, comparison, hello. That's fine too. Like we can use comparison as market research to collect data and information
right.
around our desires and make
Possible.
new decisions based on the information that we see, which is she has that, I want that. And then am I right with having that? Or is that actually not in alignment with my values? And by the way, we need to also ask the right questions. What did it take for her to actually get that? Because so many people forget to ask that question. They're like, oh, look at that hot bod. And I'm like, yep, she works out 5 days a week. She has 110 grams of protein every
Yep.
single day. She has a clean diet, organic
Doing the
food,
work.
3 liters of water a day, da 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 da. Like the list for that. The same with businesses. I've been in business for 15 years. So, of course, in the first 12 months, I already made over $100,000. That was easy for me, but it doesn't mean that that framework gets to just be copy paste and applied to someone else's business blueprint. And then, hey presto, there's the result. K month came from 7 years of crying on Instagram stories and emotionally connecting with her audience. That's her 100K month. What about you? Are you doing the same thing? Have you done it? Is it possible in 3 months' time? I don't know. It depends on the blueprint. It depends on the soul experience in the person. So again, changing one variable at a time, managing your expectations and realizing and having this awareness that you don't have all of the facts. You don't know how many hours a week were invested. You don't know how many husbands don't actually help. You don't know how many self-doubts she's had to break through, how many generational curses she's had to break, how many family members she's had to not talk about her business to because they just don't understand it. And I'm talking years of these types of examples. Some of mine, some are from clients. I'm just speaking into the energy of the things because you'll come up with so many different ways that other people's opinions can impact you as an entrepreneur, but your sovereignty is where the magic is. And don't get overwhelmed. You don't need to believe the story that I don't have enough time for this, scarcity. I don't have enough support for this, victim. I'm not going to be able to achieve it, lack of self-trust. What if other people don't believe in me, seeking outside validation? What if I don't create good enough content, visibility wound? Does it even matter? Are you afraid of being rejected, judged, hated? Can we move past like all of those things? That's just 5 that I've listed. And there'll be more. There'll be more and more and more and more. And the more you embrace the more-ness, the fuller you will feel being alive in the experience that your entrepreneurship is one of your biggest initiations and experiences to choose the path of evolution or not. To pick the harder, sometimes higher, sometimes easier, sometimes more rough timeline. Doesn't matter what the label is or what the experience ends up being, but you are choosing every day. So don't try and change everything overnight. Don't try to get into the overwhelm of, now I've done this life audit and I don't like any of this and this
And
and this
there's
and
no
this and this.
time. Like, I feel like I
Right.
get caught up in that, like, there's not
Yes.
enough time, I'm behind, and I've really had to change that belief.
That was huge for me too. Yeah.
Really?
Massive, massive, especially with a child and then
Kids.
another pregnancy, and then I'm
Yeah.
not able to scale, and then I have to cut back. And then this fifth time, the fifth child, the fifth pregnancy, I was like, I'm intentionally not scaling. My God, this feels good. I'm not resisting this whatsoever. I've got to my multi six figures. I'm going to cut it all the way back. I'm cutting my membership. I'm cutting my mastermind. I'm just doing my one-on-one work. That's exactly what I did. I'm cutting my podcast for at least 12 months until I'm back, baby, which I am now. Um, I even paused my 5,000 women on my Facebook group because I just trickled and I nurtured and I stayed in the growth phase. I intentionally chose not to scale, and I had the best postpartum that I have ever had.
Oh
I
my gosh,
will, oh
that
my
just,
God,
like, makes me
like 2
so
weeks
happy
in
for
bed.
you.
It was
It
just,
makes me so happy because I know there is very minimum women who can say that they had, like, the best postpartum
and it's
because they have so much
intentional.
pressure to get back to work. They're not I mean, I didn't even have a paid maternity leave, so, like, I wasn't even making income. Like, that's a dream
Yeah, and
statement.
it takes planning, and I really want women to listen to it and say, "Well, what did it actually take for her? What did it take for my husband to sacrifice to get there? What kind of support did I have around me?" Which, by the way, was extremely minimal, but my husband is my he's just my hero. Literally, him and I have co-created this life as mostly just the two of us. We don't have family around. His
Wow.
family are all overseas. So it doesn't always look like the Instagram highlight reel, but it can. And there is a phase and a time and a moment where you get to have those things. But if you're also bypassing and you're not valuing them in the moment that they're happening and savoring the flavor and the pleasure of feeling that experience fully, truly, deeply, even the horrible crying on the floor in the shower because everything feels like it's messed up and you know that in 3 months' time you don't have revenue coming in, and it's just, there's things that can just get so messy sometimes. But if we're enjoying and pleasuring ourselves even through the pain and the mess of the change, like it will transform your life. You are allowed to be overwhelmed with pleasure of all experiences as a human being, period. Thank you for having me. No, I'm kidding.
No.
Like, yeah, I feel like everything has just been said, and we've gone onto so many different layers and levels, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah, like I said, like, I feel like this is, like, not only selfishly for me, like, you've given me so many nuggets, so thank you, thank you. You are just such a blessing. Like, where can my audience find you to get more of you?
Love it. I've actually been really enjoying Threads, which again, I never intentionally signed up for that platform until 8 weeks ago. So I'm new there and it's working amazingly. I don't want to be in the business of like, oh, this is what I'm doing, but I do have some posts in there. If people want to actually figure out how is she getting clients from Threads, check that out. I'm on Instagram. My little tag name for anyone that's watching is Danikah Rose Creative. That's basically me. You can Google me. I've got reviews. If you need anything, my DMs are literally open as my main call to action all of the time because I can handle a lot of conversations at once. And I actually prefer the intimacy of speaking to real human beings. So I'm just saying, if you have a question or you need a referral or you want to know what kind of things that I'm selling, which again, mostly one-on-one, I'll do my mastermind again soon, which I'm excited about. I have my podcast relaunching again soon. But if you just search that name, like I've got my SEO down pat. I'm a strategist at the end of the day, a marketing goddess at heart. Like I'm
You know
so
what you're
passionate
doing.
about visibility. So you just search my name and you'll see it all pop up.
I love this conversation, and I know my audience will too. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.